Hi guys, so this is day 2 for me, day 1 for you guys. I have been changing the brakes and the rotors on my sweet Stella, my Jeep. So I did the passenger side yesterday and it was a bit of a disaster, I can't lie. I've never changed the brakes and the rotors on this car before, and it's a little bit different than the other cars that I've owned, but we managed to work through it. But I managed to sort most of the kinks out, I think, so that I could do this side pretty much trouble-free. We'll see. But I'm going to take you guys through it. It's not really so much a tutorial because I'm not really much of an expert. I sort of fumble my way through and use YouTube videos whenever I have to sort out how to do things. I'll let that truck go by. We're on a busy road, guys. I gotta listen to that all day. So anyway, last night I loosened the nuts on here so that I could spray some penetrant on everything, because yesterday I spent an hour and a half hammering at the rotor trying to get it off because it was seized and wrenched my shoulder real bad. So today we're going to try to take it easy. I sprayed all the penetrant I could think of everywhere, and I'm hoping that it spent the whole night loosening up that stuff, and we'll see how I did. Wish me luck. So the lug nuts are already loose. I cracked them. I'm going to have a pile of people give me crap for it because I have before, but I use my broken torque wrench for it because I don't have a breaker bar. And I have this torque wrench the torque's already broken because it got used to hammer something, because that's just how I do things. But it works as a great breaker bar now. So I've already loosened the lugs. On yesterday's wheel, I ended up busting one of the lug nuts. I stripped one, where I broke the jacket off the nut. So I had to get a whole pack of replacements, which is good because they're only $2 each. So I always bring out a Tupperware container so that when I take stuff off the car, I can drop it in there so I don't lose it, because my driveway is gravel, and as you can see, a whole pile of green stuff. If I don't do that, I'm going to lose pieces. I always shove the tire under the car, because even though I have the jack and a jack stand up there, you never know, and for safety reasons, if either one of those fails or both of them fails, then the car will land on the tire instead of landing on me. So you got to throw it out of the way somewhere. You might as well put it somewhere where it's going to keep you safe. This is the rotor. These are your hub posts. So we're going to be doing a whole pile of sledgehammering on this rotor to try to get it off, because from my experience from yesterday, I know it's going to be seized on there pretty bad. So it's going to look a little alarming when I do that. The one thing I would say is just you have to be careful not to hammer these posts, because if you nick these threads, you'll be sorry. Trust me, I've done that. So, but first, we have to get the caliper off. This is the caliper. So for those of you that don't know, your brakes, this is your wheel. It turns, 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 turns. When you hit the brakes, your brake pad is in here. This caliper squeezes like this on both sides of this rotor here to slow your wheel down. That's how it works. So this is compressed. I'm probably going to be able to get it off without compressing it right now, but I'll show you how I did that. But as you can see, it's in pretty bad shape. The other side was worse, believe me. I've never done the brakes and rotors in this car yet, and I've had it for almost 2 years, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised. Anyway, I've got 2 bolts on the back of here that hold the caliper on, so I've got to get them out, and then the caliper bracket has to come off, and that's when we take the rotor off, so we'll get to that. So 13 on those caliper bolts. Oh, it's not going to fit. tell you a funny story about these caliper bolts. They're on the back of this caliper, and the very first time I did this job, I wasn't paying very close attention, and I was trying to keep track of the rule lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. So when I was turning the ratchet, I'm turning it left, 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 left. I must have done it 100 times or so, and I couldn't figure out why this friggin' bolt wasn't coming out. And then I realized I was tightening it. I was tightening it all the way through. So I broke it off in there. I was so mad because it was the dumbest mistake ever. But you live, you learn. I managed to get it drilled out, and I managed to get a new one and replace it. So it actually, I found one at the scrapyard, so it cost me almost nothing other than time and a ton of embarrassment. But ever since then, I've always been super careful of remembering which direction the bolt is facing. It's such a silly mistake, but it's ridiculously easy to do. Oh, that one's not coming off. Time to bring in the big gun. No probs. So I'm actually going to compress this caliper now because it is on there pretty tight and I don't want to fight with it. I have a proper C-clamp vice grip, but I can't find it. I have to improvise. All you need is something that lets you press on both sides. See? Easy peasy. Just like that. So, you don't want to let this dangle because this is your brake line. And if you let it dangle and that hose snaps or you get it caught on something and you get a tear in it, you're in big trouble. There, it's out of the way. That's a piece of my brake pad. Not good. Trusty screwdriver. Be careful when you're doing this. There's a ton of like old brake dust on all of this, not to mention the really crappy rust. You do not want to inhale that. It's really bad for you. So just kind of... It's funny. Yesterday's brake pads were like right down to the metal. This has still a whole bunch of meat on it. So it was braking unevenly. I have no idea why. But they're still falling apart from rust, so can't have that. It's terrible. So I've got the caliper off. Next, I gotta take this bracket off. There's two bolts right back here. I can't put the camera back there, it's too hard. I gotta get them off. Had to get the hubs out to crack the nuts on the back of there because I can't fit my persuader in there. So we had to use the little handle, and the little handle gives me zero leverage. So I needed more muscle. He's my muscle. I win. So that's your caliper bracket. The truth is I should probably replace that. It's pretty rusted, but it's still pretty solid. So on it, we've got a couple of these little, there's metal clips here and here on both sides that hold the brake pads in. But the new brake pads come with new ones, so we're just going to take them out. And we'll set that aside because we're going to put it back on later. So now the rotor is free, sort of, but you can see that's not coming off. There's nothing else pinning it on but pressure and rust. So yesterday I learned that the emergency brake shoes expand out against the inside of this rotor to help hold it on, and they were seized up, and it made it a pain, huge pain, to get this rotor off. But I also discovered that there's a slot in the back here to access a tiny little adjuster in order to make those compress so that they let go, presumably. That's the theory. Problem is, I'm looking at this slot, and I'll try to find a picture of one so I can share it with you. It's ridiculously small, and judging by the way things looked when I opened them up on the other side yesterday, I don't even know how I'd find that adjuster blindly with a screwdriver, but we're gonna give it a shot. Okay, so if there's a way to get in there, I don't know it. I've seen videos of other people doing it. Clearly it can be done, but not by me. So we're gonna do it the long, hard way today. For those of you who are not familiar with this job, this is gonna seem a little alarming. I can totally understand why. However, I have done this many times, and I can tell you, sometimes brute force and dirty, ugly sledgehammers is the only way. So, bear with me. Many years of rust built up in there. But look, got it a little loose. I'm gonna have a wicked bruise on my knee right there where that crowbar smashed straight into it. But I win. Whew. So let's see if we can show you guys. This is the emergency brake shoes. There's two C-shaped pieces here and here, and what happens is when you put the emergency brake on, they go out like this to press onto the inside of this rim. That holds you in place. Truth is, I probably should be changing them too, but I'm not going to. Not today. Oh, wow. Huh. So the little adjuster cog that I was supposed to be able to get in to this slot to adjust is right here, but it is totally rusted. I don't think I can make that move. Oh. That tells me that my emergency brake is seized right now. It really is. We're going to try to loosen that up. One side's still working, so I'm not going to freak out about it too much, and also because it's a manual car, I always keep it in gear anyway. But it would be nice to get that cog turning. Oh, it's turning! I'm bleeding. So now what I'm going to do before I put the new rotor on is I'm going to clean it up a little. There's a ton of rust and brake dust all over here. So I got me some brake cleaner. New rotor. Look how shiny it is. I'll just put the old one back in the box. I have a friend who collects scrap metal. So next time he comes around, we'll be sure to give him those. Sweet. So much easier putting on than taking off. All right. So nothing else holds that on yet. It's really the caliper and the bracket that hold that on. So put it all back together. New brake pads, shiny and clean. The new clips, they just go right back on the way the old ones did. And these pads just fit right back in that slot where the clips went. Sometimes need a little persuading. Just like that. Ready to go. Now, put the caliper back on. Since I depressed it before I took it off, I might not need any more room. Yes. Good. Now these bolts, I don't know if you can see it. Oops. These bolts go into a bit that has another nut on this side, and if you turn it, it turns the whole thing. So in order to tighten it, you need a wrench, or in my case, because that's what I have handy, some vice grips to hold that while you're tightening. Almost done. That's it, guys. Just put the wheel back on and we're good. Shiny new Lug Nuts. Super important to note, guys, and I didn't do it at the beginning, didn't show you at the beginning, but when you want to crack these nuts to get them off, you have to make sure their tire is on the ground. The weight of the car needs to be on it, because if it isn't, when you go to try to put leverage on it to crack it, it's going to turn and you're not going to get anywhere. So same thing for when you're tightening these. As soon as you reach the point where it starts to turn, stop, because what we're going to do is we'll put them on hand tight like this while it's off the ground, and then we'll drop it down back on the ground and tighten it more after. But you can't put it on the ground first or your wheel's going to pop off. You're never going to get the nuts on straight. So you got to put them on in the air first a little and tighten them after. There we go. So that's good. So guys, that was it. It took me a couple of hours in total. Yesterday was longer because the rotor was seized worse. But if I went to go to a mechanic to get this done, it would have cost me probably over $800. As it is, the parts just to get this done cost me a little over $3. So I saved myself about 500 bucks for a couple hours worth of my time. A full day if you count both sides. But not only did I save some money, but I also proved once again that I can do it myself. And you guys get a good video. You guys maybe get a good video out of it. And maybe a couple of tips to show other gals out there, and even some of you guys, that it can be done. It's not that hard. And I will tell you that for the most part, I learned all of this by watching other videos on YouTube. I have a couple of friends now that were mechanics that I get a lot of advice from these days. But when I first started doing this, it was trial and error. When I first started doing this, actually, there was no such thing as YouTube. And I had to learn it all myself through trial and error. But now that I have YouTube, almost everything I've done now is because I looked it up, a couple of dozen videos, and you can sort of fumble your way through most things. So that's a lesson to all of you. It can be done. You don't have to be helpless at the side of the road. So, time to take it for a test drive. One thing that I will say to anybody who's never done it before, I've tightened these lug nuts, but I'm going to drive it around for a day or two, and then I'm going to tighten them again, because when you drive, they loosen up a little after you've taken them off. So you got to re-tighten them to make sure that they stay on, because one thing's for sure, you never want these coming off while you're driving. I don't think I even have to tell you why. So, all done. Brakes and rotors, guys. Easy peasy. Cheers. I'm not going to blow you a kiss today.